Howdy y'all, this is Losman here, and for tonight's episode of my Lazy Sunday Rundown, I'm going to basically give you a pretty good, fun description of what went down at the Dallas Comic Show, which is where I went this weekend. Now, the comic show is an event that they hold every 4 months or so in Dallas, or maybe is it every 6 months. It's a little comic show. It's not as big as Frightmare or the Alamo City Comic Con, but it's a small little venue, and they have, a few celebrities. They have a lot of comic book artists there, and it's a good place to go and meet with the family. It's not too expensive, and the guests they usually have there don't really make you break the bank, although it can break the bank, because if, like any other comic show, you tend to have a lot of fun stuff to spend money on. I mean, collectibles and comic books and autographs and other knickknacks and whatnot. So let's go down the list of what I did and who I met. Okay, first off, one of the celebrities I met was a director by the name of Jack Shoulder, and he was a director who made a number of movies in the 80s, including Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, The Hidden, Alone in the Dark, among other films. He was there and met him, and I got his autograph, talked to him a few minutes about some of his movies, and it was a pretty good guy. I mean, he's a real tall guy. There's a great photo of me on my Twitter page, and you can see the height difference. First off, to let you know, I'm not a tall person. I'm 5'5", so this guy's clearly 6 feet or taller, so you can clearly see the height difference there. Yes, indeed, indeed, indeed. Now, one of the other people I also met involved with was the actor Mark Patton, who was the lead character in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. Now, Mark Patton had been in a few movies, and he was apparently a really good actor who, was an up-and-coming star, but then suddenly kind of fell off the radar. And during the Q&A session, he kind of explains what he felt was the reason, and it's a really good reason, and it kind of goes into Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, which, if you're not familiar with, is kind of seen by some as sort of the ugly stepchild of the series, and which is unfortunate because it's actually a pretty good installment, and I'll go into a little more discussion about that movie in a second. Okay, another individual I met was Clu Gulager, who is an older gentleman. He's in his 90s, and Clu Gulager is known to fans everywhere as the owner of the warehouse in Return of the Living Dead. He's the gentleman who comes in to deal with his 2 idiot employees and try to figure out what to do. And, of course, all hell breaks loose, and, you know how it goes. He also appeared in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 as Mark Patton's father. So, that was a role I immediately recognized him. So it was pretty good talking to him. The guy is pretty good to talk to. He's like an old cowboy and older gentleman. And along the way, I also met his daughter-in-law. His son is also a director, so his daughter-in-law was there, and we talked about some of the movies she's been into, because apparently she's an actress too, and they were in a movie called Feast, which I'm definitely gonna have to look into, because apparently that's a pretty fun little comic or comedy horror movie that's out there that's worth checking out. Other people I met were Claudia Wells, who was the first girlfriend on Back to the Future. She plays Jennifer. Now, for those of you wondering who was in number 2 and number 3, well, that was Elizabeth Shue. She played Jennifer in the second and third installment because Claudia Wells was unable to be in the subsequent films. But it was really good meeting her. She still looks almost identical to herself. And this was over 30 years ago that they made the movie. And man, she is beautiful. Actually, probably 35 years ago, because the movie came out in 1985, but damn, she is a beautiful lady. So it was fun talking to her, and I'll show you some of the neat things I got from her. And another person I met was, of course, Felissa Rose, who, friend of the show, well, friend of the Losman, and oh my god, I love Felissa. We had a good time. Now, when I met Felissa, I went to go see a screening of Sleepaway Camp at the Texas Theater in Dallas on Friday night. Now, what's kind of funny about the Texas Theater is it is the theater that Lee Harvey Oswald was found after he assassinated John F. Kennedy in Dallas. Yes, Dallas has a lot of history, some bad history, memorable history. And no, it's an old theater in an old part of town, but it's a really nifty theater. I suspect this was the movie theater that inspired the Alamo Drafthouse chain, because I really felt a lot of Alamo Drafthouse vibes in this theater, and I'm definitely going to have to go back and check out that theater again when I go up. The girlfriend's family lives out there in in Richardson, which is in North Dallas. So it's definitely a location I can probably head on out, like maybe like once, 2 or 3 times a year if necessary. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, they play a lot of really good classic movies and cult films out there. So hey, that sounds like a really good place to catch up on some films. Other guests I met, let's see, I met a few other individuals. I met a person with Fangora. I met, J.J. Cohen. He's an actor who appeared in all 3 Back to the Future movies. I got a photo with him and an autograph, so that was pretty cool. He played one of Biff's gang members. So, he was one of the bungling idiot guys that always end up crashing into a manure, truck, whenever Marty's able to escape from them. Now, the comic event, or the con event, was pretty fun. I went out there, talked to some people, got some autographs, got some photos, and walked around. I mean, like I said, conventions are fun. You get to see people in costumes, you get to see all the neat merchandise people have to sell, and one of the interesting events, I guess you could say a fun little thing happened there. I noticed that about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, all of a sudden there was a large crowd of people around this table where they were, I don't know if they were giving away posters or selling posters, and I didn't know what was going on. Like what's going on? Did somebody famous come and sign some posters or something? Well, after the con, I was listening to the news, and it turns out that Blumhouse had just announced that they had canceled the release of a movie that they were producing that involved basically rich people hunting poor people. The movie kind of escapes me at the moment, but it was funny because I remember seeing the poster for it, and I'm thinking, wow, that kind of looks like The Purge. And in many respects, it probably is in the same general vein of The Purge. So apparently, there was a fury over the premise of the story, and the studio basically pulled its release, which is kind of unfortunate because I really don't believe in censorship. I mean, even if I dislike a movie, hey, release the movie and let people decide for themselves. If you think you have yourself a controversial movie, you know what? Release it in different markets, or don't do something different. Don't just shelve the movie and avoid it because you're afraid of controversy. Because if anything, I mean, when has a studio ever not wanted to make money? And apparently a controversy can make your movie popular. So that was an odd little thing that happened there, and I guess I found out about it later, and strangely enough, it was my girlfriend that told me about it, because she had asked me about this movie. I was like, what's the deal about this movie? And I'm like, oh, yeah, because I remember it's a very distinctive poster, so if you get a chance to look at the poster, what is the name of that movie? It escapes me, I'll figure it out. Oh yeah, by the way. Okay. A fun little prop I got from the producers of Unlisted Owner. The director, Jed Bryant, sent this to me. It's pretty cool. It's a little sickle from their independent movie. If you get a chance, check it out. It's called Unlisted Owner. It's a small little independent movie. It is a found footage movie, and it concerns a group of townies who decide they want to check out the local murder house, that's been in the news, only to find out that, yeah, someone else is living there. So, it's a fun little independent movie. Probably never heard of it, but look it up. It's pretty cool. And like I said, I got this cool little merchandise from it. It was pretty neat. Oh, and then I also got this neat shirt here that I won in a contest. It's the slasher Sleep Out. It's for a movie called, what is the movie? It is Ruin Me. It's a movie that came out last year. It's actually, this is a pretty cool movie. I really do recommend people seek this one out. Ruin Me is about a group of people who take part in an escape room involving a slasher summer camp theme. They basically take a group of people, put them out in the middle of the woods, give them some clues, and they have to escape whatever villain is out there. And because it's a horror movie, yeah, something goes wrong. So I enjoyed it because it's found footage, and the main character may not fully be aware of what's going on. I mean, I think they kind of suggest that she's been having some mental issues, so that always adds to the plot. So that's always a fun little story there involving, what's going on. Now, what else is going on? Oh, yeah, and then, like I said, a little, sorry, I get off the beaten path here, but that's what the whole point of this little video is, just quick little impromptu discussion of fun stuff I did. And once again, the event was pretty fun. The the Dallas comic show. Now, the other thing that they had there was they had a full life-size DeLorean, basically made out to look like the car in Back to the Future. Got to sit in it, take some pictures. Very cramped vehicle. DeLoreans are not big cars. If you've ever been in a Corvette or a Miata, you'll get a feeling for how small those cars are. It's not a big car. I mean, I'm used to driving my Civic, which is a small car, but still roomy, you know. And then, of course, the girlfriend has a CRV, which is a bigger vehicle, you know. So you got plenty of room to, you know, relax. Yeah, not in this car. You're not putting the seat back in this vehicle here. But now, going back to other things that I got from the show, I went around and got some good movies. When I talked to the director, Jack Shelter, of Nightmare on Elm Street, I noticed that he had directed this one movie that I had watched recently. I recall back in the 1980s, there was a movie called what was it called? Terror in the Aisles. It was kind of a compilation movie of various horror movies that had been released, and it featured a number of classic movies along with some contemporary horror movies at the time. Now, of course, this movie was before 1984, so they don't have like Nightmare on Elm Street on there, but they do have like the first and second Friday the 13th movie. They have Halloween 1 and 2, and you know, they have like The Fog and a few other movies. Now, one movie though that kind of eluded me was this movie here. It's called Alone in the Dark. Alone in the Dark is a interesting little movie. It came out in the early 1980s, and it was directed by Jack Shelter. It was one of his first movies. It stars Jack Palance, Jack Palance, Donald Pleasance, and Martin Landau. So that's three pretty big people right there, you know. And the plot of the movie, you have a group of mental patients who are under the care of a new doctor. The doctor's played by Dwight Schultz. If you don't know Dwight Schultz, he played Mad Dog Murdoch in The A-Team, and he's really good in this role. Really good role. And what happens is during the course of a power outage, some of the mental patients escape, and they begin to seek out their doctor because they're not too happy with some of the conditions, or they're not too happy with what's going on. You know, even though the doctor probably has nothing to do with what the previous doctor did to them. So I mean, it's a really good movie. It's a very good thriller. It's got some really scary moments in it, and it does have a little bit of a cameo, another famous horror movie villain, which is worth checking out. So it's a good movie. It's great. Like I said, it came out in the early 80s, and it's definitely, oh my god, Jack Palance and Martin Landau play some pretty scary characters in this movie. And of course, hey, Donald Pleasance is no slouch either. I mean, as you know, he's pretty good at what he does. Let's see, I also got this copy of Back to the Future. This is the 30th anniversary Blu-ray edition. I got it signed by Claudia Wells, which is pretty badass, you know, so yay, awesome. It's funny because she hadn't seen it yet. As a matter of fact, J.J. Cohen, the other actor that had been there, had not seen that collection yet. So that was pretty cool, being able to show something that they weren't aware existed. Now, of course, I got my copy of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 signed by Mark Patton, which is pretty cool. My copy of Nightmare on Elm Street, which is actually a Blu-ray, is signed by Amanda Weiss, and I had hoped to get Head Camp to sign it, but I didn't get a chance to, so I'm hoping we can get that signed in the future. But yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street 2. You know what? We'll go into a little discussion here. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 kind of gets a little bit of flack from the fan community, and we had a little panel discussion after, during the convention, where you had the director Jack speak along with Mark Patton and Clu Gallagher, and they were going into about the making of the film, what it took to make the film, and some interesting tidbits. Like, for example, the studio did not want to bring, or apparently they weren't too quick about wanting to bring Robert Englund back, because, and here's the funny thing, who was the star of the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie? It wasn't Robert Englund. It was Heather Langenkamp. Who was the second star of the movie? It was Amanda Weiss. Who was the third star of the movie? John Saxon. Or maybe it was the other way around. But either way, Robert Englund was not in the top credit listing, because Robert Englund was just the masked villain in there. And if you go back and look at the first movie, he's only in about maybe 12 or 13, 14 minutes of the movie. I mean, most of the movie is basically the main characters. You got Heather, you have Amanda, you have, of course, Johnny Depp. That's his first movie. And they're the focus of the movie. And Robert Englund as Freddy, basically, heck, they didn't even call him Freddy. He's Fred Krueger in that movie, which is kind of odd. Doesn't factor into later in the movies. Now, when the second movie was being made, they didn't quite have Robert Englund on board yet, and supposedly it was because of money, because hey, you're gonna appear in a sequel, hey, let's get some more money. But apparently, Wes Craven didn't like I guess either the direction of the movie or what they wanted to do with the movie, so he wasn't involved with it. And then that's where they brought Jack in to direct the movie. Now, there's a lot of discussion about A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, and they did bring up the elephant in the room. Yes, the movie does seem very gay by today's standards, there's a lot of overtones in the movie which were kind of a little different for its day. Think about it. This is the mid 1980s, so having gay characters or even gay figures was quite a big deal. Now, it doesn't distract from the movie because in many respects this is a scarier movie than the first one. Robert Englund's makeup is more terrifying. The movie does focus more on Freddy basically being kind of like a puppet master manipulator, basically manipulating Mark Patton's character to to get revenge on those he wants to get revenge on. And the weird thing is, I think because a lot of people were not expecting that kind of horror movie, because it's a little different from the first movie, which is, just a straight out slasher one. This one's more of a, psychological slasher with a lot of like mind games and whatnot. So it's worth looking at it again, because it gets unfairly maligned. In many respects, I think this movie is basically like Halloween 3, in that it catches a lot of flack from fans because it's not the first movie. And of course, when they released Dream Warriors, or Dream Warriors, Dream Warriors was probably what people were expecting, the Freddy Krueger movies to be, and that's basically the template they followed for the subsequent sequels. In those you have Freddy being more and more comical, whereas in this one, no, Freddy Krueger's still the evil psychopath. There's nothing funny about his character at all. He's a straight out serial killer in this. So that was a good panel discussion. I really got some good insight on there, and I'll try to find it. I know Fangora videoed it, so I'm gonna see if we can try to find the video, and I'll post a link to my Facebook, or not my Facebook. Well, yeah, no, Facebook and then Twitter. All the usual suspects. So I'll put a link out there. It's really worth checking out. It's about 45 minutes long, and I am in there, so I think I don't know if I asked a question or not, but it's definitely worth checking out. So I will post a link to that and try to get that out there. Now, the other movie I wanted to mention was Return the Living Dead. This is the classic movie from the mid-'80s. People love this movie. It's awesome. Clu Gulliver appears in this movie. Like I said, he's the owner of the warehouse. And, what can be said about this movie? It's awesome. It's funny. It's great. It's basically a riff on the, Night of the Living Dead, but in its own way. There's zombies, it's got the Tar Man, which everybody loves. It's got more brains, and it's got a great cast of people, including Linnea Quigley and what's his name, Miguel Nunez, and of course Clu Gulliver is in there, and a few other good people. There's a lot of fun, great people in that movie, and I definitely will have to come back to this movie in the future. So it's definitely one to look at. Now, some of the other nifty things I got when I was up there in Dallas. There's a fun little video store I like to go to. Well, it's more like a DVD movie resale place. It's the Movie Exchange. I don't even know if we have them here in San Antonio, but I like this place because it has an impressive collection of new and used movies, and not just your basic common movies like the ones here, where you find like 20 copies of like The Notebook or more mainstream movies. So I guess the DVD Blu-ray resale places here seem more like Blockbuster movie, which is fine, but when you're looking for more unique movies or cult movies, yeah, I usually have better luck at half-price books. But so I went to the Movie Exchange and I found some pretty good movies. I got a copy of Piranha, which is directed by I believe it's Alexander Jai, and I gotta figure out how to say his name. If you are not familiar with Piranha, which was also known as Piranha 3D, Piranha was a remake of the classic movie from the 1970s, and it is such a fun little movie. It's literally a B movie with A budget and A movie actors and scripting. It's bloody, it's gory, it's got lots of naked boobs in it. I mean, the movie is just outrageous, and when the shit hits the fan, it gets bloody and gross and fun. I mean, it's almost like a comic book how crazy it gets. So if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. I mean, it's one of those cult movies that gets talked about a lot because it surprised. I mean, when I saw it, I was surprised. I thought it was gonna be a stupid remake like a lot of other remakes, but damn, it's definitely on my list of better remakes. So definitely. And then of course I also got a copy of The Witch, which is known to most everyone here. It's Studio A24. It's one of their first major movies that gained a lot of notoriety. And I definitely need to revisit this one because The Witch is a very strange horror movie. It's atmospheric and it's very cerebral. It's a word that I don't use very often. Cerebral horror. Yeah. Of course, I got to get myself a little Funko figure of Black Phillip because hey, you know what? The Funkos up here wouldn't mind having Black Phillip as a companion, so be pretty cool. The last movie that I picked up, the Poughkeepsie Tapes. Now, if you've never heard of the Poughkeepsie Tapes, wow. Okay. The Poughkeepsie Tapes was a movie that was made over 10 years ago, but it was not released. I think it did get a small digital release, or maybe a slight release, but then it was pulled from the market for unknown reasons. And it was unavailable commercially for about almost 10 years. It came out in 2017 on Blu-ray, this is the Blu-ray of it here. If you've never seen it before, I'm going to give you a little description. You have police investigating an abandoned house, and inside the house are hundreds of video cassettes. The video cassettes, when examined, contain video evidence of a serial killer who had been operating in that area. Now, yeah, okay, fine. Typical, crime thriller / horror movie, What makes the Poughkeepsie Tapes more terrifying is that the videotapes show a very deranged, very smart, very sadistic serial killer who does not use the same MO. They quite literally have an individual with the potential for hundreds of disappearances and murders, and of course they have the evidence of it, and they don't know who he is. And that's what's terrifying about this movie. If this were a real serial killer, this person would put Jack the Ripper to shame. I mean, it's a very dark movie. It's disturbing. It is a found footage movie, so if you're not into found footage movies, think of this more as a mockumentary, because that's what it is. It's a fake documentary / found footage movie, and it is disturbing. I mean, really disturbing. It is definitely one of the most controversial movies of the past 10 years, and I will definitely cover this in a future episode, and it'll probably appear on a future list coming up pretty soon involving movies that were controversial or banned movies. Ooh, I'm giving away some future lists I'm throwing out there. But yeah, definitely. I mean, Poughkeepsie Tapes is definitely a movie worth checking out, and it's I believe you can see it streaming. It is on one or two of the usual streaming clients out there, maybe Tubi or it's definitely not Netflix. They're not gonna have anything interesting like that on Netflix, but it's definitely worth checking out. Oh, sorry about that. I got two more movies I was going to show you. Okay, last week I did a little discussion about movies that were what do they call them, guilty pleasures, and turns out I got one in the mail. Galaxy of Terror. I mean, look at this. This is a beautiful steel book from Shout Factory. It's basically a nice little, Blu-ray copy of the movie. It was my own fear that attacked me, brought to life somehow by this place. Ooh, like I said, this movie was Event Horizon before Event Horizon. It's definitely a beautiful looking copy. It's got some great features on it, some great interviews. And like I said, it's got an impressive cast. Robert Englund is in this. And Sid Haig is in this. And let's see who else. Ray Walston is in this. Mr. Hand from Fast Times at Ridgemont High is in this. And Grace Zabriskie, who you see her, you recognize her. She's been in a lot of things. She's awesome in this. And oh my god, like I said, this is one of my all-time favorite horror movies, sci-fi horror movies, alien knockoffs, guilty pleasures movies. I love this movie. It's awesome. It's great. It's bad. It's Roger Corman, so of course you're gonna get weirdness, and it does have some James Cameron ties into it because I think he was like the second unit director, so worth checking out. The other movie is another Roger Corman classic. It's called Forbidden World. Now this one is another alien knockoff. It's not as well known as Galaxy of Terror. Well, maybe it is. It was released under two titles. The first one was called Mutant, and the other one was called Forbidden World. Generally similar in that it is an alien clone. It involves a galactic troubleshooter who's sent down to this planet where they're doing some research that's kind of a little controversial, and he has to deal with one of their mistakes. So it's an amazing. I mean, I love this movie. It's everything a bad movie should be. It's got a creepy, ugly, icky monster. It's got lots of unnecessary sex, because come on, it's a Roger Corman movie. You're gonna get unnecessary sex, or they're gonna find a reason to get the women naked, and for reasons that make no sense whatsoever. But it's Roger Corman. What do you expect? And it's got a strange soundtrack, and I think one of the coolest yet most useless robots ever seen in a movie. I mean, when you see him, you'll recognize him. He kind of looks like a stormtrooper. He talks like a little boy, and when the chips are down and you need your robot bodyguard to be there to watch your back, it kind of drops the ball and kind of like falls apart on you. I mean, literally falls apart. So I love this movie. It's another guilty pleasure of mine. Didn't make my top 10, but it's definitely in the top 20 of 80s guilty pleasure movies. So like I said, this is also from Shot Factory, and it's a beautiful steel book. Let's see, you open up this one, and in this one it's got the movie and it's got the inside, and this one says, "Welcome to the Garden of Eden. We play God here." Yeah, gives you an idea what's going on in that movie. So basically that covers another weekly roundup here. This one, pretty good episode because I had a lot that happened this weekend. It was a pretty fun weekend. Now, some things to look forward to. Next month, there will be another comic event in San Antonio. Fairly new one, actually. It's going to be like a new show coming out, and apparently I'm going to volunteer to help out there, so that should be fun. Maybe I'll get some good interviews, or at least talk to some celebrities. I know Sid Haig will be there, and Ron Perlman's going to be there. I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be pretty fun, and like I said, conventions are awesome. Now, this one's going to be in San Antonio at the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center, so if you're interested in coming, reach out to me. I'll give you the details. It's going to be sometime like maybe I think the second or probably the third week in September, so it's going to be definitely checked out. Oh, and I also found out that the Cult Classic convention that they have in Bastrop, Texas, is back on, and they will be having their next show in February of 2020, and so far they have let's see, who do they have? Oh, they're going to have Brink Stevens as a guest there, so that's going to be something to look forward to. And there'll be more guest announcements coming, but I can guarantee there's going to be some good Texas Chainsaw Massacre alumni there, like Carolyn Williams will probably go. Who knows, maybe even Bill Moseley. I mean, he may go. I mean, I know he's done it before, so hopefully he can go. And then you'll have some other, like the various actors who played Leatherface there. So, okay, for a second or third attempt, I'm going to try to close out the show. So, this is the Losman here. I just wanted to wish you all well, and I'll get back with you, and that's the lowdown.